everyone, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week, along with some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos and friends, we review films either current or classic on this show. And this week, we are definitely going with something current. We're going to be reviewing Fire Island, the new LBGTQ plus rom-com from Hulu. We're also celebrating Pride Month this episode. Happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
We definitely are ready to let our pride flags fly, especially as we talk about a movie that is geared very much towards the LGBTQ plus audience. So lots to talk about, but let me introduce my wonderful co-hosts before we get into those exceptional conversations we're going to have. Jim Pugliafico is with us in the virtual studio. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks. Happy to be here to talk about this movie and to start Pride 2022. I'm kind of really excited about that. And yeah, I'm ready to go.
Excellent. Well, so glad you're here, babe. We also couldn't do this without the wonderful William Lindis. Hey, Will, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here. And yeah, happy Pride. It's always fun around this time of year to celebrate, everything that has been made in terms of advancements forward. But it's also, I think, just as important to remember this is the time of year where we reflect as to why Pride is still super important, as there are people actively legislating away the rights of ourselves and our brethren as we speak in this country. So, Pride isn't just a celebration, it's a protest. So let's give them hell this month.
Absolutely. Right. Well said, Will.
Needs to be
and
done.
Angel Mora Jr. is in the chat with us. He says, Happy Pride.
Hey, Angel.
Happy Pride, Angel. Welcome. Glad to see you. All right. Well, I have to say, Will, you're looking very much like a snack today in your rainbow designed tank top. Very nice. Love wins. So good.
Nice one.
Yeah, I'm feeling Fire Island-y. I wanted to do something that felt like I was there, a place I've never been, but like as if I were there.
Indeed. And Jim, I see you've got your rainbow Star Wars shirt on.
Yeah, we're talking about a Star War today, right? A Star War. Yeah.
And I've got rainbowy Super Mario characters running the spectrum. So we're all here. Yeah. We're all in our Pride gear. I think we're going to have a pretty good conversation about a film that I don't know if you guys know this, but it actually was originally supposed to be a series of 17-minute episodes on Quibi back when it was a thing.
That I did not know.
Yep. And then Quibi went the way of the dodo, and Hulu picked it up and turned it into a movie, which is great for us because we love to review movies on this show. So, Jim, Will, what do you say we get right into it? Are you ready for Fire Island?
I'm ready.
Yeah, let's take it to the meat rack, guys.
Dick Dock, wherever.
No, that's P-Town.
P-Town. Dick Dock. Meat rack is
meat rack is the woods between the two halves of Fire Island that you have to cross.
Cool.
So, all right, we are going to do this right now. If you haven't seen Fire Island yet, that is completely okay. We're going to talk about the film spoiler-free for probably 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll probably do a short spoiler section on this one, but we'll give you a fair warning before we open things up to spoilers. So if you're like, I haven't seen the movie, don't feel like you have to run. All good. Feel free to hang out with us. We'll give you our initial thoughts and impressions on the film. We won't rip away your innocence. We promise. Unlike other podcasts that say they won't and then spoil everything, we don't do that on this show. We pride ourselves on that. So hang out with us.
Ourselves.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
So hang out with us. Here we go. Our discussion of Fire Island. All right. So, Thomas Gladhouse says, hello, boys. Hey, good to see you. Welcome.
Tom Gladue. Mm-hmm.
He actually saw the film, he says.
Oh, so, awesome.
Tom, definitely want to hear your thoughts as we get into our discussion. Let's go to Jim first. So, Jim, I know you had kind of volunteered to kick this conversation off for us. what is this movie about, and what were your initial thoughts? Spoiler free, of course.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I didn't really know much about this movie going in. Didn't know that it was being made. It wasn't, didn't get a lot of buzz, at least that reached me. Although I did know a little bit about Fire Island. I've never been there, even though I grew up in the Northeast. Kind of the place for kind of the summer meetup place for gays and LGBTQ in my neck of the woods, Massachusetts, was Provincetown, right, or P-Town. And we'll talk about that, maybe about like kind of the vibes that this movie gives versus like what we've experienced like in P-Town. But it was interesting to see Fire Island. But let me get into the movie a little bit. The movie's about a group of queer best friends who gather in the Fire Island Pines, which is, I guess, is a section of Fire Island, for their annual week of love and laughter. But when a sudden change of events jeopardizes their summer in gay paradise, their bonds as a chosen family are pushed to the limit. So there you go. This is this film that I guess I just learned 5 minutes ago was originally going to be a series. Is written by and starring Joel Kim Booster, who is a comedian, stand-up comedian, actor, and directed by Andrew Ahn, who I don't really know all that much about in terms of what he's directed previously. But
he did
Will
Driveways.
I bet Will does, huh?
He did Driveways.
Oh, he did Driveways,
which
that's
I know.
right.
I know you like that one. Yeah,
I did like that one. Right, that one had who was it? Was it Jack Nicholson? Who was in that one? Will look it up anyway.
Yeah. No, it's not Jack Nicholson. That one had Brian Dennehy.
Brian Dennehy. Cool. Yeah. But yeah, so directed by Andrew Ahn. This one stars Bowen Yang, who folks may know of if you watch Saturday Night Live. He's an SNL. He was famous for being the iceberg who sunk the Titanic. If you ever saw that Weekend Update bit. Margaret Cho is in this. Conrad Ricamora is in this. A lot of familiar faces that you might have seen in other stuff. Not really having major roles, but other than the ones I mentioned. But you see a lot of faces. Like, I think I've seen that guy or that person in something before. But yeah, my impressions of this was a really good time. I enjoyed the hell out of this. I was skeptical at first because I didn't know going in. I didn't know the writer. Thought I didn't know the director, but I guess I did. Will, thanks. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. I was super impressed with the acting chops of kind of the main cast. There are basically three main characters that kind of came across to me, and that's Noah, played by Joel Kim Booster, who wrote this, as we said, Howie, Bowen Yang, and Will, played by Conrad Ricamora, who I thought were all fantastic in this. I really, to me, I don't know if I could pick a standout because I think they were all great. I love the character of Will, played by Conrad Ricamora, but I think that's more like how the character was written. This one's about friendship. It is a drama and a comedy, so a dramedy. Obviously it's written by and starring comedians, right? These people are comedians, and so I thought the jokes in here were really good. I thought there was some really sharp commentary and laughs in this one. So yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. I think it's definitely worth checking out on Hulu. If you've got Hulu, great. If a friend has Hulu, talk them into having a night and watching this one. It's a lot of fun. I thought it's well put together. I don't know much about Jane Austen, but I know it's referenced in the story. I've never read anything by Jane Austen, but Pride and Prejudice is one that supposedly Joel Kim Booster got the idea for this script when he was on Fire Island in the summer reading Pride and Prejudice and said, hey, I bet I could do a Pride and Prejudice right here around this community, and in this setting. I think it would be great. And sure enough, here it is. And that's what we get. Kind of makes me want to go and see Pride and Prejudice now. So that's another good thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it's wonderful, and it's fun, and it is a drama. It's kind of a relationship drama, and it's a lot to talk about. So I want to hear what you guys think.
All right, awesome, Jim. Thanks so much for giving us your initial thoughts. Will, how did you feel?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot to enjoy here at Fire Island. I mean, this is a rom-com, and it ticks a lot of the rom-com boxes. So I think there are going to be some people who will say, like, yeah, that's not really my style of movie, and that's okay. You know, the same with if you don't like horror, if you don't like sci-fi, you don't like action. But what I think works rather well about this one is, despite the fact that it sort of falls into sort of like, it falls into some predictable predictable like layers, as a lot of these rom-coms do, but I think that it layers them with something that is kind of sincere. We have all of the different characters that are portrayed here, especially kind of the main group of friends. You know, this is that group of friends who are looking at kind of one last summer before they don't get a chance to do this. They're potentially going to go different directions, or maybe not, but it's hard to tell kind of what's going to happen when this one thing that they've all clung to goes a different direction. They all kind of fit into the thing that we see all of the time on the apps, right? You know, no fats, no femmes, no Asians, right? Like the thing that like really terrible, shitty people put in their fucking profiles. And this whole group is sort of brought together by being of that group and not kind of fitting into what the movie portrays as sort of like the norm of Fire Island, right? You know, like guys who look a specific way, carry themselves a specific way, which is kind of like that hot, twinky, kind of beefy, you know, stereotypical gay. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but this movie sort of like plays into the what does an outsider do when they're in this space. I love Joel Kim Booster in this. He is remarkably funny in playing this sort of like himbo character that is also not just a himbo. And I think that's pretty neat, right? I think this could have been a very vapid character. This could have been a very one-note character, and it wasn't.
Can you explain the himbo reference?
Yeah. Himbo is sort of like the best example I can think of is like, you know, like to the T himbo is the Chris Hemsworth character from the new Ghostbusters movie that came out in like 2016 or so. You know, kind of like a character who's attractive and maybe not incredibly bright, but you know, a
little uptight.
No, not uptight. You know, more
okay.
like kind of like, you think about like a stereotypical like blonde, you know, just sort of like maybe ditzy,
like very pretty but not intelligent.
I get it. It's a take on bimbo himbo. Got it.
Yeah. So I think that character, the Noah character, was sort of in that mold of like kind of himbo-ish. You know, he was there to get dick. He was the kind of the most puerile of some of his friends. He was the one who was you know, much less interested in the idea of what a relationship could even be, but instead you know, he also enjoyed reading books, and he was you know, he was a nurse. He was sincere in kind of the way that he tended to his friendships. So I thought that was pretty cool. I love Bowen Yang. I think that if you haven't listened to it, everyone should add to their must listen list his podcast, Las Culturistas. It's him and his partner on that, Matt Rogers. It's a pop culture podcast. Matt Rogers played he's also one of the 5 friends in Fire Island. He played, I don't remember the character's name, Luke, says IMDb, the one that was also competing for the one guy's affections, we'll say. The two of them do a great, like incredibly witty pop culture podcast. And of course, his work on Saturday Night Live is great. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I mean, it doesn't really reinvent anything, but I think what's nice about it, and I said the same thing with Love, Simon, and I think I said the same thing with Happiest Season. And I think this is a better movie than Love, Simon or Happiest Season. I'll go ahead and say that.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it's really nice that there are some of these like straight down the middle rom-coms or romantic dramedies or whatever you want to call them that are no longer just the purview of straight people, right? Like we get to have like this flavor in our culture as well. And the fact that we have this with a bunch of leads who are, also kind of nice here, it's a bunch of sort of non-white leads. That's also really cool. It means we're getting to branch off into territory that I think is much more exciting, even if the story itself is maybe a little plain Jane in terms of the way that it's formatted. All of the different things that are sort of like poking at the edge of it make it a lot more exciting as a result. I like it. It's on Hulu. I think you should give it a watch.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks so much for weighing in. I appreciate it. For me, I am not a rom-com guy. So going into this movie, I was a little bit, I say going in, we watched it on TV. But I was a little, I don't know, on the fence about this one. I was like, I know we're watching it, reviewing it for the show, but oh God, do I really have to watch a rom-com? And I will say that this movie did not trip all of my triggers. It probably didn't even trip most of my triggers. But how fucking cool is it that our community gets to have a rom-com like this? Like, we get shitty rom-coms. Not saying this movie is shitty. There are other rom-coms out there for our community that are not good. We'll just say it. They're not good. But it is great representation, right? Being able to see our community, our culture, represented on screen, some of the references that they make in these conversations that they have throughout the movie. I feel like conversations that I would have with some of my friends, so it feels authentic. It feels like it's really plugged into the pulse of our community and what's going on sometimes. Other times it feels completely unrelatable to me. I'm not, 100-pound guy. I'm not part of the main Fire Island crowd. We've been to Bear Week in P-Town, which is much more my jam. But I will say that even though I don't really connect with the Fire Island community, it was nice to sort of have a big guy character in this movie. One of the friends is a big guy. They brought him along. Without going into spoilers, though, I will just say the excitement that I had for the big guy character, I completely lost by the end of the movie because he's just the token, like, big guy to have around. He doesn't really get a lot to do. And so I don't know. I feel like that's a missed opportunity for this movie, which is all about great representation and love is love. And it's like, can the fat guy maybe like be more than like a friend to laugh at, please? We didn't get that, but that's not what this movie probably set out to be or to do. It would just have been a nice, thing to have, I guess. But the movie was fun. I really, really liked the Will character quite a bit. He reminds me of some people that I know in my real life, people that, may be incredibly successful. They may be very smart. They may be very attractive, but like maybe they're not the best at socially interacting with people. I think this movie kind of talks to some of the barriers that exist between each other just from a inability or failure to communicate. If people just talk to each other, you never know the cool stuff that can happen. So it was neat to see some of these things play out on screen. Fire Island itself, I think, was a great sort of set piece in a way, providing different areas for these characters to play in, whether it's the house that they're all staying at with Den Mother Margaret Cho, who was wonderful in this. I loved seeing her show up. To go into a tea dance or a private party at a house. It was nice that, we weren't kind of stuck in one place, but we also weren't like everywhere all at once. We got some cool, just centric pieces that we could play around with and enjoy the space in. So, would I say that this is a movie that I think everybody should rush out and see on Hulu? Probably not. But I mean, if you're looking for something to watch during Pride season that is representative of at least a part of our community, then I would say, yeah, have fun with this one, knock yourself out, enjoy it. I don't know. I'm really looking for that silver bullet representative movie of like everybody someday. I don't think
Yeah.
we'll ever get it, but boy, it would be nice.
Yeah, and I think that's asking a lot, and it's I'm not saying it's something we shouldn't ask for, right? I'm just saying that I think that's a tall order. I think for some of these movies and stuff. I saw an interview with the writer Joel Kim Booster, one of the late night talk show things, and he said, one of his fears, why he didn't care very much about how like the straight community would take this, but he was super afraid of how like our community and the different factions or the different corners, let's say, of our community might see this, because it's hard to represent everything, right? It's hard to do that, and I get that. But one of the things that that I really liked, and it's the movie kind of starts off with this, is the relationship between Noah and Howie as friends, right? I immediately got the sense that these two really had a bond, and I guess in real life they do too. They're both comedians. I think they know each other, but like at least in terms of the character, I got the sense that they, had kind of grown up with each other, and that relationship to me was well written through, and starting from the beginning and all the way through. That's kind of what carries the movie through. So yeah, I really like that, and I don't know. You mentioned about like how the shitty part of our some of our culture, where it's like, no fats, femmes, or Asians, whatever. I did like that, the two main characters, as a matter of fact, the three main characters here are Asian. And you got the sense that, they're getting their chance in the limelight, right? To not be on the perimeter anymore, right? And to me, that was really cool. I liked how they did it. I think the movie and the characters were very self-aware of that phenomenon, right? And kind of worked against that, and made us realize that they're a part of the community as anybody else would be. Brad, you brought up the big guy. His name is Max in the movie, played by Torian Miller. I guess he's been on Abbott Elementary is a show I really haven't gotten into yet, but I guess he's in that. I guess he was on The Conners, but I don't watch that one either. Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing. It was great to see him there, because I think he's, the lines he had, I thought he was wonderful. But of course, like, well, we'll get into spoilers, but one of the things in spoilers we'll talk about with his character that kind of the one issue I had with the character work was, yeah, you got to make the big guy, do big guy things in a movie, unfortunately. Right. And we'll talk about that. One of the first scenes, things he does is, well, we'll get into it in spoilers. I don't want to spoil it right now.
Yeah, we'll hold that back for now.
Yeah, I think that, and it's difficult, right? Because I know that his, as Joel Kim Booster said in that interview, it wasn't as much what straight people think of the movie. It'd be great if, they all flock to Hulu and watch it, because that means there's going to be more queer content on the major streaming
exposure. Yeah.
But how the gay community would take it, because there are so many different like factions. And the one, while on the one hand, that's very accurate. I think the other hand is that's unfortunate too, because I feel like that puts too much pressure on one group to have to represent every group, right? And what I mean by that is, when we think about rom-coms that are not queer rom-coms, what was the one with Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen from a few years ago?
With the jacket.
She's running for office.
Long
Shot. Long Shot. Yeah. So that one just got to be a rom-com about these two people. We didn't have to worry about like all of the different factions of people that existed in this, because it got to be just a story about them. So that's one of the things that's unfortunate about stories of representation, is that it can become a hole that keeps digging itself.
Yeah.
And so what I appreciated so much about this one is that I think that it covers it doesn't. It doesn't have to represent all, because what it's telling is it's a very personal story about this one group of friends at this one specific event that can make you feel like an outsider. I think that whether it be at Fire Island, or I mean, hell, even let's be real. Let's call it, bear events. There's a lot of people even within our own group, within our own community, who are made to feel like outsiders at bear events. If they don't look a specific way, or I one that I know of is, people of color will sometimes say, like, it can be hard to go to certain bear events because I'll feel like the only one there. So I think that capturing that, at least within this microcosm here, was effective for me. We got to see that story play out without it necessarily feeling like they were, martyrs for, within the story, but we got to see how they weren't exactly like looked upon the same way as as the people that were, again, the traditional Fire Island air quotes
Right.
fare.
I think what I'm saying though is not so much that I expected this movie to represent all people and all groups. I'm saying if this movie is going to put a fat guy in the cast and have him be a member of this friend group, do something with it. Have a story around that. I think about like the Bear City movies, for instance. There is a character in the Bear City movies who is not a bear, but he hangs out with that friend group. He gets his own storyline. He gets to have just as much fun, if not more, as bear characters in the film. He's also a person of color. Great to see that representation. If you're going to make one of the cast members be someone who is maybe on the, that's a great way to put it, Tom, an outsider amongst outsiders. Work with that. Make that part of what you're doing. If this movie didn't have a big guy in it at all, and it was just a bunch of skinny guys, I'd be like, all right, this movie isn't trying to say anything about like my group of people. I'm not represented here, but that's okay. I can still enjoy it for what it is. I just think it's more disappointing to have a big guy character that you turn into kind of a farce of big guys and a stereotype, versus maybe like trying to do something a little more real and maybe a little more respectful to that kind of person. So
Actually, and I'll push back and think a little bit and say that, like, for the background characters, because we had him, we had Luke, we had Keegan, like the rest of the friend group, right? They all got sort of equal playing field. Luke had like one extra scene, but like when you really think about like the other, Keegan didn't get much to do in here. But what I appreciated about what they did with the Max character in this was his story. Like, I think they could have made it this a story where, I don't know, I think they could have made him the butt of jokes, and instead, like, he was getting as much dick as anyone, if not more.
He was.
Yeah. And his storyline was, he was, of the ones, he was the one that was sort of like, kind of like within the friend group, the person who's like, oh, no, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. And then you kind of find out they're like, oh shit, no, they do a lot of drink. Like, that's not a fat or a skinny trait. That's a trait that you might have within a friend group. So I like that his story was a little agnostic of that.
but I'm going to push back on your pushback and say that it's one thing to show, it's another thing to tell. And this movie does a lot of telling. And maybe we need to get into spoilers for some of this, but with the big guy character in particular, there's reference that he's having sex. But do we ever see anybody coming on to him? Do we ever see him like getting down and dirty with somebody, or like, getting intimate with
all
someone, or
anecdote,
having moments?
right? It's all anecdote. Right?
It's just reference. Like, it could be true or not. We don't know. So anyway, I'm not going to die on this hill. I'm just saying, if you're going to have a big guy in your queer movie about awesome, amazing representation, maybe actually represent that person a little better by showing, not telling. And
what I'm going to say, I'm only going to say one thing about that character, and I can only do it in spoilers. So,
all right.
And I'm ready to move on.
I think we're at that point where spoilers make absolute sense, because we're really haranguing ourselves trying to talk around a lot of these things. So if you haven't yet seen Fire Island and you care about the plot of that film, if you're listening live, now is your chance to step away for about 10 or 15 minutes. Come on back for our plugs, Pride edition at the end of the show. You're not going to want to miss those. Those are going to be some great films or TV that maybe we put on your radar that will help you celebrate the Pride season. So don't miss that. If you're listening to the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Jim, relative to when we're taping, we'll have put a time index into the show notes for you. You can literally just click on the little timestamp, skip ahead to Pride Plugs, and you will be good to go. That said, spoilers are officially fair game for Fire Island. Jim, I know you were kind of hamstrung there for a little bit. What was it that you were wanting to say now that we're in spoilers?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate the fact that I liked that character quite a bit, Max. I thought the actor was great. I did appreciate that there was some representation of that group, multiple groups actually, with that character, and that's awesome. I just wish they didn't make his first one of his first appearances knocking somebody into the pool because he was clumsy. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way right from the beginning. Like, I don't know, he stumbled on the stairs or he reached for something and he knocked one of the other guys into the pool. And I'm like, oh, why did it have to be that character? You know, it's kind of a stereotype, and I just feel bad that the movie kind of fell into that. But the rest of the way, his character was fine. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of movies do that. They tend to make, we know this, right? They tend to make the big guy the butt of all the, the normal big guy jokes, whether it's eating too much or, being in the way, whatever it is. And they tend to do that. And it just kind of rubs me the wrong way from the get-go.
I will say though, Jim,
Yeah.
in this film's favor, they did show him with his shirt open sitting by the pool. So we got to see some big guy skin, which I feel
Yes.
like other movies may not have done.
Right,
So that's a
right,
feather in its cap.
Right. I also want to talk, because we haven't talked much about him, but this Conrad Ricamora character, he plays kind of, and I don't know how we describe this character. There's probably a name for it, but he's like the quiet, like, seems very standoffish, seems very superior kind of a character. But in a sense, in the end, he's really just like more misunderstood, right? He's socially awkward. And that was the Will character here. And I thought that was well played, well written. I loved, I want to see this guy do more stuff. I thought he was really great in it.
You should watch How to Get Away with Murder. He's got a not insignificant role on that show.
Okay. I might have to check that out then, and just
82 episodes actually. Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Almost the entire run. Cool. I'd check there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did a great job. I think that it's hard to play a character sort of in the model of like an Austin character or a Bronte character, kind of the standoffish, but you can win them over love interest style character, and make them still be likable, right? It's very easy to be too charming and too likable up front, and so it doesn't really read as to like why they might be rubbing each other the wrong way, or so unlikable and so aggressively like jerky that by the time you get to the end of the movie you're like, well, I don't get this and I don't like this. But I feel like for me personally, I did like the way that that he played this character. I believed it. This was a character who felt he was overly protective of his friend to the point where he bristled and rubbed some people the wrong way. He was also okay with doing that because you could tell that this is a guy who, as we learned through the movie, has been around people who have hurt people that he's befriended before, right? And so he's had his hackles up, he's had his guards up. He's not. He's also feels a bit like an outsider amongst the crowd there at Fire Island. We get to see all of that, but we get to see it sort of roll over the other direction. We get to see some of his more engaging elements. I honestly thought my he was my favorite character overall in the movie. I really enjoyed whenever he was on screen, just sort of like deciphering where he was at and how the other characters were feeling about him in those scenes. That was fun to watch.
It was interesting that the movie started out mainly about the Howie character, and is the Howie character going to find D, or a boyfriend or whatever? Is he gonna find happiness? Right? He's down in the dumps. He's the kind of guy. He's the friend who's always there, but kind of never gets a slice of the pie. So the movie was centered on his relationship with Charlie. Right? Is that the name of the character played by James Scully that he was kind of friends with? But yet, in the end, the relationship that I was most interested in was the Will and Noah relationship. All throughout the movie, even though kind of the movie ends with Howie, with Charlie chasing down Howie at the end when he's on his way home. That's pretty kind of standard fare for these movies. Is he gonna keep him from? Is he going to let him escape, or is he going to chase after him? And of course he does. But like I said, I love the Noah and Will kind of like the secondary relationship in the movie a little bit better, at least for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. A nice guy being nice to another nice guy? No, you don't say. For me, that just didn't have or hold as much interest as the Will relationship. And I think one of the reasons I like the Will relationship so much is that it starts off with both characters involved sort of being like
adversarial
off their normal footing, right? Like when Will is talking about like what he thinks and he's overheard, like that immediately puts them at odds. So as opposed to like a nice guy finding another nice guy to like hang out with, you have these two people who are discordant with each other, right? And they find their way to that common ground. They find their way to each other. As rom-coms go, this was just absolutely predictable as fuck. But again, it was nice to see, the Lifetime Movie of the Week moments happening to members of the LBGTQ community. Great to kind of see that representation happen. I really appreciated the use of Last Dance as the musical number that this movie ends on, as they're all kind of dancing on the dock. And it definitely leaves you feeling really good at the end that things kind of work out. I would argue that real life probably doesn't quite work out like it did for this group of friends. But I will say I like that they did go with a little bit of a serious route about the house that Margaret Cho owns having to be sold. They're coming to grips with the fact that this is probably going to be their last summer staying at that house with her. There was an element of realism and grounding that happened there. They could have done a little more with it, I think, but then I don't know. You could have gotten into maudlin territory. So I think they tried to walk the line, and they did it fine enough. But it was not perfect, but still fun.
Yeah, think back to just like the decades of like rom-coms where the final scene, for whatever reason or another, is like all of the cast dancing as the credit rolls, right? Like that's something that you see a lot in these types of of movies. But here, it felt earned because one, it followed like the tender little slow dance thing on the dock. I think that was cute, that was sentimental, and then all of the friends just sort of having a moment, sure. And I also like in terms of other music, like in terms of like needle drops, there was an absolute queer anthem in Kim Pettras's "Heart to Break" that plays at the karaoke bar. We got the Britney Spears, not the karaoke bar, but the drag show. And then the karaoke, they did that cover of Sometimes I Run, Sometimes I'm scared of you. That was, I don't know. It was, these were little things that, yeah, I know. Right? I think it's fun to, as gay people, we have like our own like DNA, right? Not everyone's going to relate to all of these things the exact same way, right? But there is like within any group, there is like a shared language, and some of that comes from music. And I love that this had a bunch of gay anthems strewn all the way through it. I thought that was super cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What else for spoilers, guys?
I don't know that I have too much else to say about this, to be honest. I think we've kind of covered the big points.
I think that if you're interested in learning any more about Fire Island, like if you're interested in knowing more about it, not just from the standpoint of like what it is for the context of this movie, but like Fire Island holds like a historical place in queer history, the same way that Provincetown does, the same way that Stonewall does. Not the exact same way, but you know, it is sort of woven into our DNA. There is a neat little documentary called Cherry Grove Stories that is on Amazon. You can rent it for like $3. I screened it for a festival several years back. But it's just a bunch of people who are now like the residents or the people that were a part of some of the earlier kind of like the heyday of Fire Island, reflecting back on their stories. So it's generally a bunch of like, you know, elder queers like talking about their stories and about how sort of things have changed over time and how things have stayed the same. So I would definitely recommend if your only exposure to Fire Island is just through this movie and you want to know a little bit more about its significance and history, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but that's one way. And I think you should, because Pride is, again, it's not just a celebration, but it's understanding our history and it's understanding our roots, and this is just one way to do so.
Awesome, Will. Thanks for that mini plug.
Yeah, if you're looking for something else to kind of key you into Fire Island, there's actually a really great novel written by a bear author, a member of our little community. Ben says, "Do bears go to Fire Island?" Ben, this is exactly what I'm speaking to. So Wayne Hoffman is the author. He wrote a book called Hard, and in it, one of the main characters goes to Fire Island with a group of his friends. It's not the whole book. But it's, I don't know, maybe a third of it, about what happens at Fire Island. Bears do go to Fire Island. They are there, even though we didn't see any bears besides the big guy, really, very much in this film. Bears do indeed go to this event, but it's not like Bear Week in P-Town. It's not like nothing but a sea of bears and, bear admirers. It's very much like pockets of bears. Not pocket bears, although there may be pocket bears.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great book, and that when we got to the movie and they're talking about like the meat rack and all these different places, I already knew about them. I already had experience with them because I read about them in this book. Again, that's Hard by Wayne Hoffman, gay author. Support our community. If you want more Fire Island and you like to read books, there you go.
And women go to Fire Island too. Women that aren't just Margaret Cho. So that was the representation piece. It's like, man,
women
more than just Margaret Cho
who own the homes that the gay men
the lesbians got really left out of this one.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I was looking up, I was curious because I don't know a lot about Fire Island, and I do know a little bit about P-Town and or Provincetown, and I was kind of looking up like a Fire Island versus Provincetown comparison thing. And whereas Provincetown, at least from our perspective, being bears, Bear Week is basically that. It's a week or 10 days, I guess, in the middle of summer, that where the bears kind of descend on that part of Cape Cod and Provincetown, and have like a week-long bear event, basically. Whereas Fire Island, I think, is more of like a summer-long thing. It's not like a one event. It's I believe, I think it's just like it's a summer vacation spot that has some, not the whole island is gays, but a lot of it is, and specifically these parts, like the Pines and Cherry Grove, is that the name of it?
Yeah,
are where kind of they congregate. So that's interesting that it's are different things, slightly different, different experiences.
Yeah, there's actually there's a calendar for Fire Island, and they have all kinds of different events from weekend to weekend to weekend. There's a lesbian weekend, there's drag weekends. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. So I think P Town kind of does the same thing though,
Yep.
right? There's like a lesbian
Yeah.
week, and
Yeah.
so very similar. Angel Moore Jr. Hey Angel, he says I knew queens who summered at Fire Island. Of course, Angel being from New York, that makes complete sense. I think it's really cool at the end of the day that even though I've never been there, we have spaces like Fire Island or P Town, right, where we can go and just kind of be surrounded by our community and love who we love and it be safe and special. And, it really makes me want to go back to P Town. Maybe we should actually go to Fire Island. I don't know. Maybe we will someday. But I would love another, berry summer vacation, in a cool place like that. So something to look into. All right, fellas. Well, have we plumbed the depths of Fire Island? Are we ready for Pride plugs, or did you have more to say?
I think I've just exhausted everything I know about this movie and Fire Island, which isn't a lot saying, to be honest.
Gotcha. And Will, I heard your confirmation as well. Well, then we're going to go ahead and move on forward to Pride plugs. So these are movies, TV shows, etc. that we want to put on your radar. You may have heard about them already. You may have seen some of them, but you haven't seen them in a long time. These are things that when we think about Pride, when we think about all of the feelings associated with Pride, they are our go-tos. And who knows? Maybe there'll be a new go-to for you. Will, what is your Pride plug for this year?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been doing a lot of lately is I've been reading a lot of like graphic novels and trades, specifically things that are in the either the horror space or the sci-fi space or the kind of queer examination space. And by that I mean like not necessarily like fictional stories, stories that like this, the one I'm about to talk about, are that explore sort of like what it is to be queer, to interact with queer media from a almost like a comic book biography perspective. So this is one that I read recently, and it really impressed me. It's called I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. And it's this it's all done in these beautiful little blue ink drawings with texts. And it starts off as this like this genderqueer kid is the biographer, and he's telling about his infatuation with River Phoenix when he was growing up, and how he like the stuff with my own private Idaho. And as he continues to follow that infatuation and kind of what happened with River Phoenix's death, the facts surrounding it, like his own interaction with like finding out about that, it then digs into some of the not so great like racial history of like kind of like Portland. There's a lot of white nationalism that you don't get to hear about as much, and how that intersected with some of the sects that Gus Van Sant was doing that involved River Phoenix, and this sort of like exploitation of some of the young men that were in his circle. And what was so cool about this is a story that really reminds me of how intersectional all of these things are, like his queerness and the way that he interacts with his community, the time that he grew up, his infatuation with media, the cultural and racial things that were happening in his own community, all wove together to form this story about who he is as an adult. So I really love stories like this. They paint a very complete picture of queerness that I enjoy. So this is I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. The author of it is Manny Murphy, and it's it's not a terribly long read because again it's just lots of art taking up most of the book, but it's great, and I strongly recommend it.
Will, you were giving me very strong Reading Rainbow vibes with your visual, like showing us the book and talking about it. It's amazing.
Butterfly in the Sky. I can go twice as high. Fuck you, butterfly. I'm like twice as high as you.
Without chemicals. Without
Is it Molly? Is it Molly? It feels like it's Molly.
Is it Molly? Maybe it's G. I don't know.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Will. Jim, what's your pride plug for this year?
Okay, well, I'm gonna do a pride plug. I mean, we've had so many great LGBT movies, films, right? We have Moonlight, we have Carol, we have Portrait of a Lady on Fire, just so many amazing ones. This one here, though, I went a different route. This one here, we've kind of skirted around talking about this film or this series of films in conjunction with Fire Island. I think this one would make a good double feature to Fire Island in terms of like boosting up the representation. Now, it wouldn't give us a complete representation of our community, right? Because we cover the whole spectrum of the rainbow, right? And every corner. But Bear City 2, The Proposal. This is a film we've talked about before on the early days of the podcast. Director Doug Langway, some of the stars we've talked to on the show, Gerald McCullough, Joe Conti,
Greg Gunter.
Greg Gunter. In this movie is Kathy Najimy, and just a pretty awesome cast. I just think, when I was watching Fire Island, I'm like, reminds me a lot of Bear City 2, The Proposal. And I'm not going to make a comparison between the two, a qualitative comparison, because I enjoy both movies. There's a lot of they both have kind of the same bone structure, right? They're comedies with relationship drama. This one takes place in Provincetown, so you get to see another gay summer getaway kind of vacation spot. So anyway, this one's called Bear City 2, The Proposal. It is available for rent on I think on Apple. Apple things for like $3 or $4, right? You can rent it. So, and there's a whole series of them, but the one that takes place in Provincetown is Bear City 2, The Proposal. I think it would go well with this Fire Island movie.
So what you're saying is we need like a gay summer movie marathon. Fire Island and Bear City 2 both have to be on it. But we need other gay summer travel movies too.
Yeah, we need to get more lesbian representation in here. I think
fuck yeah.
With these two movies, we just don't have enough. So we'll have to come up with one of, Portrait of a Lady on Fire would be great, except that's kind of it's not really a comedy.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you're right.
Totally, not quite the same flavor. Not quite.
It's in the ballpark of it, but yeah.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, Jim, thanks so much for sharing your pride plug. Mine is a film that is a comedy. And I feel like I should preface this by saying that you guys know me. I'm not a super big fan when it comes to comedies. Comedies always hit me weird. Even rom-coms, But this film, I don't know, somehow got under my skin, and 25 years later, I still love it. This movie stars Patrick Swayze, John Leguizamo, and who's the last person? I know you guys know. Wesley
Snipes.
Very good. They play a trio of drag queens who go on a road trip and end up in a small little rural town that is not quite ready for all the gay realness they bring. This movie is Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar. Long name for a film, but this movie, going into it originally, I didn't think it was going to be, for me, again, comedies, I typically steer clear of them. But holy shit, I know this is kind of an older movie at this point, but it is so much fun, and there's so much heart, and I think it says so much just about our community, but even deeper than that, just people and how we relate or not to each other, right? Through communication and openness. I think this is a fantastic movie. And one of the reasons I wanted to make it my pride plug for this year, I know we've actually talked about the film on the show before several years ago, but I was talking to a few people recently, and I'm not even talking about like people under 25. Like people that were around when this movie originally came out, who were in their 40s or in their 50s. They're like, oh, I never saw that movie. I'm like, well, why did you never see that movie? Oh, I don't know. It just looked stupid. I never wanted to see it. And I'm like, boy, do I understand what you're talking about, because I thought the same thing, but it blew my socks off. Go see it. Well, not go see it, but like go rent it, you know. And Tom, absolutely, I agree. Tom says Patrick Swayze knocked it out of the park. Um, Patrick Swayze, R.I.P., was so phenomenal in that movie. All three of them were. But anyway, this is a movie. It is available for you to rent, buy, stream, whatever. But if you didn't take a chance on this movie like I did initially, I sat on this one for a little while. I think you're doing yourself a bit of a disservice. If you're looking for something to help you celebrate Pride, I think this is a great movie to help you do it. So, Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything. Julie Newmar, good stuff.
Back in the good old days when you could, you would not get canceled for straight people playing gay on screen. I don't know. These days, I don't know how that would fly. But I mean, it's a time capsule, right? That movie is a classic time capsule with 3 great performances. Certainly, I don't or didn't have a problem with anything that movie represented, whether it be straight or gay. Just fantastic. So, but like I said, nowadays it'd be a Twitter storm probably.
Yeah, from modern day sensibilities, I absolutely see that. And how great would it be, if we had 3 LBGTQ, actors who could play those drag queens. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a Tu Wong Fu reboot.
Yes, Tu Wong Fu too.
Maybe we'll get a reboot and we'll see that happen. But I mean, not to make this whole show about the movie, but I mean, this was pretty crazy to not only have made, but like come out in the time that it did back in the 90s. Jim, you said it really well. I think that it is a bit of a time capsule. Mm-hmm. Is it perfect? No. Is it maybe problematic on some levels? I think it could be. Absolutely. I acknowledge that. But I do think it's definitely still a good movie worth checking out.
Yeah, it holds up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody who tuned in live with us. Definitely was great having you along for the discussion. Pride and the discussion is not over, though. Of course, Pride is happening all month. And even in other months. In Tucson, we don't have our Pride till October because it's so fucking hot here. But I did want to close out just by asking real quick. Will, is there an Austin Pride happening this month?
Kind of, but we're in a similar boat. Like there are some Pride activities that happen here, but we generally do ours like September-ish.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I thought that might be the case.
When it's not sweltering.
And the same thing, it's too hot.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely makes sense. There's a little town about an hour and 20 minutes south from here called Bisbee, Arizona. And it's a little cooler down there than it is here, thankfully. But they're having a Pride celebration, not this week, but next week. Yeah. And we're going down for that. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll be dancing in the street with our shirts off.
Get our Pride on.
Rainbow flags. That's right. So looking forward to that. Tom says Vegas is in the same boat with Pride. I can't even imagine doing Pride, in June in Vegas. That would just be insane. But whether you celebrate Pride in June, whether it's October, or honestly, let's celebrate Pride all year. Hope that you are safe and have a hell of a great time at your Pride celebrations whenever they take place. And folks, if people want to chat movies or Pride or whatever with us, let's sound off on how they can get in touch. Jim, how can folks get in contact with you?
Find me on my Twitter at JJPOutWest. It's right here. No, it's right here. At JJPOutWest is my Twitter handle, or on Facebook, my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right, excellent. And Will, how about for you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Whatever Cove. William Lindis on Facebook. Send me a message first so I know who you are. I do a lot on Letterboxd. Just search for me there. And on TikTok, I'm at The Movie Bear.
All right, excellent. And you can find me on Facebook. I'm the Brad Harris that has Bear, Chub, Chaser friends in common with you probably. I'm also on Twitter and Letterboxd at iBradPro, right here on the screen if you're watching. I always have to watch where I'm moving my finger because the image is reversed and I don't want to point at the wrong thing. I know. Thanks so much, everyone. This was episode 439 of the Movie Bears podcast. We got a big one coming up for you next week. Episode 440 will be Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So definitely. Wait, did I say Fallen Kingdom? That was the last movie.
No,
wasn't it?
no. This one is Jurassic World: The Two Towers.
Oh, that's right. Thanks, Will. Appreciate that.
Two Towers, 2. Electric Boogaloo.
Whatever the fucking new Jurassic World movie is, that's what we're reviewing next week. So we will see you all then. In the meantime, we love you. Take care. See y'all later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.